Hi, this is Ryan Thomas with East West, here with another Composer Cloud tutorial. And today we're going to be looking at the Desert Adventure demo that was written for one of the 1-minute Composer Cloud tips. And this one was written to feature some of the ethnic libraries from East West, which include Ra, Silk, Voices of the Empire. And there are a few more, but those are going to be the main libraries that we'll be using in this piece. I want to remind you that there is a list of all the patches that were used in this demo in the video description, so I would encourage you to have that open while you watch this so you can be referring to it as we're talking about the various instruments. So let's go ahead and dive right on into this piece. And we're starting this piece with strings, some of the ethnic instruments, and percussion. So let's go ahead and give it a listen. Okay, let's break this down starting with the strings. And we've got a couple things going on here. We've got the violin harmonics from Symphonic Orchestra, along with the viola flautando, also from Symphonic Orchestra, and the basses and the cello just sitting on this low E in octaves. Now, joining them in bar 3, we've got legato violin and legato viola, creating this tension. You can see where that's happening here, and then they're resolving that in bar 4. So let's give that a listen. All right, let's go ahead and add our ethnic instruments. And we've got the duduk from Silk, along with the ragdung, which is sitting down there with the basses and the cello, just adding a little bit of extra texture. This is one of those things that is kind of supposed to be felt and not heard. And then we've got the Voices of the Empire kind of doing a duet with the duduk. So let's hear what this sounds like together. Okay, and as you can see, we do have some key switch programming going on here with the Voices of the Empire. I just wanted some different words for each note, just to switch up the texture a little bit. This is a really fun patch. It's the words key switch patch. There's just a ton of different phrases and words that just give you so many possibilities to work with. And finally, we've got our percussion. And we're starting off with that cymbal swell and the timpani roll, along with the Dynasty Odaiko, which is, it's had the filter applied in the actual East-West Play engine. So all you're getting from that Dynasty Odaiko is the very lowest frequencies of the instrument. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and solo that for you so that you can hear what it sounds like. And really the only purpose of this is to sort of supplement what's happening with the timpani roll. So by itself, and then with the timpani roll. Okay, and we've got the tickies from Storm Drum 2, the bamboo jingles also from Storm Drum 2, along with, I believe this is the Seng Seng from Storm Drum 3, the djembe ensemble from Ra, and the Egyptian doumbek from Storm Drum 3. So we're just going to solo the percussion bus here, and I'm going to add this MIDI information as we progress through this part of the piece. There's our djembe ensemble, Seng Seng, bamboo jangles, and the tickies. And I added this cool little shake from the DAF, which is a really fun patch in Storm Drum 3. That kind of gives you that cool, ominous little rattle. And as you could also hear, at the same time that this rattle is activated, you've also got the gong from Symphonic Orchestra playing very, very lightly, along with a bass drum. Okay, and I think that does it for this section. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next part of the piece. We'll just take it from here. Okay, let's break it down starting with the strings. And we have introduced this ostinato line in the low strings, and joining them is going to be just a single sustained note from the violas. And in bar 8, we introduce a melody in violin 1 and 2. So let's give that a listen. All right, let's bring in the ethnic instruments. And we've got the qanun and the tar actually doubling each other in all these measures here. And they're playing this pseudo melody line. Again, you don't really have a defined melody in this piece. It's more of a score than an actual song. And you've got the oud kind of playing this, I don't really know what to call it. It's just a moving line that, again, kind of helps to outline the chord, and it just helps to provide some movement in the ethnic instrument section. So let's see what that all sounds like together. Okay, and now let's talk about the duduk, the ney flute, and this is actually just another patch of the ney flute. So in bar 8, we are doubling the strings, the high strings, with this ney flute line here, and let's see what that sounds like. And there is some key switch programming going on here. Unfortunately, I can't get it all in the same window just because these notes are so high and the key switch notes are all the way down here. But you can actually see down here where those key switch notes are triggering the different articulations. And the ney flute is a really cool patch. They've got a ton of articulations for you to choose from, and it can sound quite natural if you get the programming right. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just solo the ney flute by itself. And later on, you can go ahead and match up these key switch notes to the articulations in the patch, but we just don't have time to cover it in that amount of detail right now. But you've got all the information that you need to kind of figure that out for yourself. And we also have the duduk coming in at bar 9. And it's kind of playing a harmony line with the violin 1 and 2 melody. And then we have another patch of the ney flute just coming in right here to add this little tag at the end of this phrase. And finally, we've got the percussion. And we haven't really changed much from the previous phrase, but let's go ahead and give it a listen. And I'm just going to unsolo everything because we have now added all of our elements here. That's a cymbal scratch from Symphonic Orchestra, along with a gong hit, Mark Tree. And we've got a timpani roll going into that next section. And speaking of the next section, let's go ahead and dive right into that. And there are a couple transitional elements that we do need to talk about here. So let's start one bar out. Actually, let's start 2 bars out so that you can hear it. Okay, so really all you've got here is a timpani roll, and that is being joined by a reversed note from the kanun. And all I did was just play, I believe, an E in octaves in this patch, and then I bounced it to audio and used the reverse function within Logic. And by the way, you can find that right here. You click on your audio file, and you just click on this, and it'll reverse whatever that audio file is. And so that sounds like this by itself. And it's pretty subtle, but it's a really cool way to move into this next part of the piece. All right, let's break it down. And we don't have any actual orchestral strings in this first part here. So let's start off with the ethnic instruments. And I'm actually going to have to take this a couple instruments at a time because there's just so much going on here. So we've got, I believe, the solo violin from Gypsy. Really, really fun patch. Once again, there's some key switch programming going on here, and I'll leave it up to you to kind of match up these key switch notes to the various articulations in the patch, because we just don't have all the time to cover that. And joining the solo violin, we've got the solo cello from, this is Hollywood Solo Cello. And you can see all the mic positions that I have enabled here. And that is fairly important for this section. And let's go ahead and give it a listen. Yeah, so you can hear there's a little bit of processing here. I have this going to a stereo delay as well as to a reverb, and we'll get to the reverb in a later section. Same for the cello shorts, but otherwise not a whole lot of processing besides some EQ and compression. Now let's add the kanun. All right, and let's add the tar. And the tar is actually pretty much just going to be doubling the kanun. So let's also go ahead and add the ode. And as you could hear, there's a little bit of pitch bending going on here, just to switch it up a little bit. And it's very subtle, but it's a nice little touch. It can kind of simulate, even more realism. And now let's add the duduk. And it's really just coming in the last part of this phrase, so... All right, and finally, let's add our Voices of the Empire. Once again, there's some key switch programming, just switching up the words. I happened to find one that really fit well with that one little line right here. It just follows the violin, and that was just a happy coincidence. Okay, and let's throw in the percussion. We've got a bit going on here. We have now added the lion drum, the Persian battle drum, the shaker. I don't think we have really changed up the rhythm in these patches here from the previous phrases, but we've also added the Storm Drum 3 layers, and I'm going to go ahead and just show you all the instruments that are in this one instance of play. And you can see all the volume settings there if you want to recreate this yourself. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and solo the percussion bus by itself because there's just a lot going on here. Okay, and I'm going to start off with this MIDI data selected, and I'm going to add more as we progress through this part. Storm Drum 3 layers, Scheim Daikos, shaker, bamboo jingles, and I held off on adding these two because it was already getting kind of cluttered. So let's actually take a look at this now and play it again. Battle drums by themselves. The lion drum hits. And once again, we have some accents in the all cymbals patch from Symphonic Orchestra. And that cymbal swell going into the next section. Okay, let's add back in the ethnic instruments. And we are going to now add the strings, because we do have some strings coming in for the second half of this phrase. So let's take it one bar out. One thing I do want to point out is that we are using the mod speed patch, and this is a very intentional change in the CC1 data because I wanted there to be the staccato on bow articulation for just these three notes. It kind of blurs them a little bit more. And one more time. And finally, we can add in the brass. And the brass is pretty much just going to be helping us to crescendo into the next part of the piece. So let's go ahead and take it at bar 19. So not too much to talk about there. All right, and we are into the final section of the piece, so let's go ahead and give that a listen and break it down. Let's start at measure 19. And let's break it down, starting with strings. So we are starting off with all string shorts, basses, celli, violas, and violins. And the violins and violas are going to be playing this little melody line here with the basses and the celli just sort of supporting the chord structure. And let's give that a listen. Let's go ahead and stop it here. For this outro, we have the high strings trading off this phrase here. I shouldn't say high strings specifically, the violins are trading off this phrase here with the violas and the celli in measure 26 here. So I'm going to add in the legato strings patches, and that all sounds like this. Oh, sorry. And one more time, because that does happen very quickly, we've got the violins playing this line here, with the violas here and the celli here. And then the violins are holding out the E, while the violas and the celli take over that little phrase. And the basses are sitting on this E all the way down here. So one more time, and we'll start back at measure 24. Okay, now let's go ahead and start adding our ethnic instruments here. And we've got the kanun with the tar. And the tar and the kanun are going to just be doubling each other. So let's give that a listen. Notice these pitch bends. All right, and let's add the duduk. All right. And let's go ahead and add the Voices of the Empire. Once again, notice that there is some key switch programming going on here. So each one of these is going to be a different word or phrase. Okay, and finally, we are going to just unsolo everything because we are now into the percussion. And there is quite a bit going on here, so let's go ahead and just play it all together, and then I'll break down the percussion for you. Notice this gong hit. The cymbal swell into that last note. Okay, so let's actually solo the lion drum hits and the Persian battle drums by themselves. And of course, for this last hit, we just have the Dynasty Odaiko, which is filtered, so it's just going to act as a sub-boom. Okay, now let's go ahead and add the bamboo jingles here, along with the shaker. And, there's not a whole lot to talk about here, but these are important. They're going to be the high treble elements of the percussion section. And just for the sake of time, we're going to stop it there and add in the chimes. That's what they sound like by themselves. again, we're going to stop it there for the sake of time, and then we're going to add in the Storm Drum 3 layers as well as the DAF. Finally, the djembe ensemble and the doumbek, but I'm just, for this, going to solo the entire percussion section. So that pretty much does it for the epic percussion section. But one other thing that I did want to point out is that I'm using the gong from Symphonic Orchestra to sort of introduce this outro. And let's go ahead and listen to that in context. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that does it for the actual piece, so let's go ahead and dive into the reverb setup. And for strings, we are using the South California Hall string-specific impulse. For the solo violin, as well as for the solo cello shorts, we are just using the classic digital with the 2.7 second tail. And I should note that we are also sending to a stereo delay here in Logic. I'll go ahead and just pull that up for you so that you can see the settings. For the kanun, the tar, the oud, the duduk, the ney flute, the ragdung, and the other ney flute, we are using the Abandon Abbey. And for brass, we are using the South California Hall Brass Specific Impulse. And then finally, for percussion, we are using the Northwest Hall Rear Room. And for this particular session, because we were working with so many different solo instruments, I had to send to some different reverbs from, a few different actual instrument tracks. As you can see, normally I just send from the buses, but we just don't have the time to go through every single track and show you what I'm sending to. But all the reverb instances I just showed you are the only reverbs that I'm using in this session. So I would encourage you, if you want to try to rebuild something like this, just send to, the various impulses to taste. And the other thing I need to point out is that, of course, I am also sending most of my orchestral instrument groups to the what I call the stage verb, which is the lexicon emulation within Spaces 2, the classic digital. So I think that does it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. Otherwise, I hope you got some valuable information from this, and thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.